Hello, welcome to the Overlap Rugby Podcast. This is episode number 19. I'm Shane, that's Daragh.
Hi.
We're going to get straight into it and we have a lot to cover because we've been obviously preoccupied with the Lions for the last little while. So we're going to start with Super Rugby, which is now more unlike the Northern Hemisphere. This is getting into the serious stuff, and we're finally getting to see some of the kind of more competitive fixtures and closer fixtures between more evenly matched outfits. And now obviously this weekend we're starting with the knockout rugby, and that's going to be really exciting because there are a lot of different looks to these teams that are left, and they're playing very differently. And obviously the fact that the South African teams have by and large gone certainly a few more than others, but have gone largely untested throughout the course of the season. Certainly they've had a lot more mismatches in a lot of their games. Means that there's a lingering doubt. Like obviously they look
Lions cough, you know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna name names or but yeah, no, that obviously we're gonna get to see now how they stack up against proper
Not this
outfits.
weekend.
Not for the yeah, I know. Still, they have a derby game first and then into the semis.
I suppose
but
there's reasonable places any to start is just talking about that format, because it's nuts. The Lions are gonna have gone through the whole regular season and have now topped the regular season as a result of Hurricanes beating the Crusaders without playing a single New Zealand team. They're not going to play a New Zealand team again this week, so they're going to make the semis without playing a New Zealand team. So all they'll have to do is 2 games at home
against New Zealand teams
to win the comp. But they could win the whole comp only playing 2 whole games against New Zealand teams and never having gone to New Zealand.
It seems bonkers, and it is bonkers, and the fans have had their say as well. It's like the first half of the season, it's no fun to watch.
Not much
fun
for the Lions fans, who are getting good turnouts in Ellis Park, for games that just ultimately amount to nothing.
Nothing but a training run.
I'm sure they only would have loved to welcome the Crusaders down there at one point during the regular season, and vice versa. A New Zealand tour would have been a welcome test for that team.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something on the New Zealand teams as well. There's still a bit of an unknown factor to it because they haven't had to test themselves throughout the season against the Lions, I guess, the ones who are looking the most formidable in the South African conference. So they're playing some really exciting rugby with ball in hand. That much is definitely true. They're big, they're powerful, they're all thinking about the game. There's a lot of good structure to what they're doing. In defence, though, there's still that question mark, and it's permeating throughout all of their teams.
And the other thing is they just get away with mistakes. The Lions, like they make unforced errors that they don't.
But they're playing in games where you can only play what's in front of you, and the fact that an unforced error isn't that consequential means that they're more likely to try things then, and then more tries come off.
But then the other thing that happens is, like, when they do start to play in the big games, they're going to freeze and make less errors, or are they going to just be caught cold making those mistakes and get caught by them? So it doesn't benefit them at all either.
Apart from maybe the winning culture aspect to it, I guess they're definitely used to winning games, which helps in knockout rugby.
They're not used to winning tight games.
No.
That's really what the winning culture is.
And there have been so few tight games over the course of this regular season. It's not just them who are affected by this format, and that there's been a lot of blowouts and a lot of games that once you reach half time, the outcome is already a certainty, and you're just watching, and even coaches are trying experimental things. We had Faf at 10 against the Sunwolves, tearing things up. Which was great, and he handled a few different looks from the defence. He played it really well. But again, you're facing ultimately traffic cones at the end of that game. Like, they were completely blown out of the water. Granted, the week just gone, they scored probably their best win in the Sunwolves in their history against the Blues, which we will talk about as well. We're going to break down some of the last week's games, because they were for the first, even though a lot of these teams were resting a few players, and the All Blacks weren't back in a lot of their respective clubs, but the teams were kind of already looking to the quarterfinals. Either they were wrapping up their season and they have no more games to play, or they were trying to look and see what they're going to be doing and plan their course to the cup, to Super Rugby title. So one of the first games we're going to look at is the Chiefs and the Brumbies, who are both through. So it was a bit of a training run out, and that at one point it was.
Well, the Chiefs had. Technically, had they got a bonus point at home and had the Crusaders knocked the Hurricanes, which we know didn't happen, they would have got a home.
So they were playing with that in mind.
So they were playing for a home final, and they actually crucially didn't manage to get that bonus point, which is interesting. But
even still, did win, playing some great rugby. It was a really fun game of rugby. We were watching it together, and it did have a kind of training ground kind of feel to it from both teams a little bit. And the Brumbies certainly were kicking a lot of ball, and it just meant you got to see a lot of the Chiefs with ball in hand, and a lot of McKenzie in the open field, which is a pleasure to watch. Always tearing it up.
There was some really nice play from the Brumbies in defence.
Yeah.
They were good. They were sharp. They made a lot of tackles, and the Chiefs, they obviously gave the Chiefs a lot of ball. They really they don't manage the ball that well, the Brumbies as a team. But in terms of their defending, it's pretty decent. Their breakdown work is pretty decent. The Chiefs, again, they had more or less their full back line.
Slightly less, but still formidable.
They didn't have Leonard Brown, which obviously matters. And obviously this week they're not going to have Charlie Ngatai, which certainly matters.
Yeah, that's going to be disruption.
But by and large, that back line, that whole team probably has
purrs
the best,
very well. It has a lovely balance.
Of all the teams in Super Rugby. I think it's there's
some of the
nice
carnage up that left channel with Lowe and McKenzie operating together is crazy. They're getting serious.
There's a really nice mix of distributor and big and
power,
and again, like you talk about Leonard Brown, Leonard Brown is almost more comfortable in that role in his club than he is in his country. It's a bit bizarre that the All Blacks are asking him to do more and be less himself than he is able to be in the Chiefs side, because Cruden and McKenzie enable him to be himself. So he's going to come in and play with a lot of freedom, which is going to be really helpful from his perspective. But the real freedom that you're seeing is coming from Damien McKenzie. And it totally releases the shackles from Cruden's shoulders and allows him to be just a solid 10. James Lowe the same, gets into the game a lot. So they can attack from anywhere, and they have obviously that two distributor factor is really nice with Stephen Donald to come on then off the bench. So they've got they're able to move the ball everywhere. They've got a lot of weapons, and they can use all of them, and they know when to use all of them. So their attack is persistently dangerous. It's always new. It's always creative. They always seem to be thinking about how to get around a defence. And very rarely do they just shut up shop. Very rarely are they stunned by a defence. And they were the team that I noticed early in the season when the Crusaders' defence was shutting everybody down. Even though they lost that game,
inroads.
They did figure it out. They scored a few tries against the Crusaders. They worked those inside lines. Cruden did really well. James Lowe did really well coming in off his wing. They did imaginative things. They thought their way around a problem. And that's why I think they're looking really strong.
You're touting them. They look the most balanced, and especially when you look then into the pack and the players come back into that pack, specifically Retallick and Kane.
And Hick Elliott
as well.
Tom Sanders coming in as well,
serious.
And Dominic Bird coming back. So, I mean,
there's that's a lot of weight. A lot of they keep ball remarkably well as well. They're patient, even though they're attacking very dynamically and very decisively with those two. That's one of the great things I do love about McKenzie as well, is just he's instantly decisive. Right or wrong, and usually much more often than not he's very right. But he's instant in that decision, and it's born of you can feel that freedom to decide to take the risk when you know you have such a balanced pack, keeping the ball really well, covering ground across the pitch really well as well. They're really athletic.
In that pack with Hick Elliott to come back, and obviously Michael Leach as well. Liam Messam he around? I'm not sure if he's injured or not.
I don't know actually.
He wasn't here this week, but Liam Messam again, another big guy, could come back into that team. So again, a lot of ball carrying strength, especially from Hick Elliott, who's going to come into that team and be just a ball rusher around the fringes.
Offers another, and he's decent enough in a distributor role as being first receiver and link up with his 10.
Same with Retallick. So in this game, they got a lot done. They moved the ball really nicely. They got to spend a lot of time with ball in hand and did a lot. Did a lot with it, and they looked really good. They looked like they were playing an elite team, because even though they didn't get the bonus point, and there were some murmurs about that, the Brumbies actually played pretty well.
They did,
and they were just frozen out of the game and made to look really, really tiring. I feel like that Brumbies defensive performance was the kind of performance that could have shut down really good attacking teams to nothing, and had the Brumbies win it 10-9. But because the Chiefs are just so good, they ended up putting 26 points or 28 points on them. And people were sort of murmuring that they didn't get that last try. But I thought
they look really good going in. They look really well in fine shape, coming into fine form at the right time, which is perfect. But unlike the Crusaders as well, who we did mention before, the Crusaders seem to have maybe timed their gallop a bit early, maybe are flattening out now. Well, we don't know, but they did play the Hurricanes, and they did record their first loss of the regular season. Obviously they lost the Lions as well, but they were beat, and it was pretty decisive. They were well beat. They weren't they can rediscover. Obviously they're still there's the ingredients of a superstar team there already, but they're still not converting a lot with ball in hand. They're a bit indecisive, a bit ponderous for a New Zealand team.
That's the biggest problem, and I think it wasn't the case really earlier in the season. It was very structured, but it was there were always options. Using a lot of those screenplays, they're always moving the ball quite nicely, a bit like they did with the first 10 minutes. They got quick ball and used it well. In this game, they won the pack battle. I think it's fair to say they were on top. Matt Todd got the better of his battle with Artie Sevilla. One of those battles with All Black implications. Kieran Reid was rampant as always, making tackles, doing carries.
He was all over. He was leading from the front.
Involved. Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing about Kieran Reid. We were saying mid-match, even when things were looking sour for the Crusaders, he was making big plays all the time. He was determined to win. Yeah. And you're noting like he's one of those world-class players who would look world-class in any team.
That's that is a question mark that we raise sometimes about certain New Zealand players, certain All Blacks specifically, where you're looking at how they fit into the team, and you're also going like, well, are they all that exceptional? Or is it the unit and the trust that's there that allows them to play with that freedom? And would they excel if you picked them up and put them in Italy? Would they have the same impact like that Parise has? That be that talismanic figure for a lesser side? And there are some of them where there are doubts more than others. But in Kieran Reid's case, you just know
there's just no doubt.
There's no doubt. He's such a classy footballer. He really is, and he has such delicate hands.
And so he proved again this week. Scott Barrett as well was doing really well. The whole Crusaders team looked quite nice. Their maul didn't work that well, but
stifled a little. But
they looked good, and they provided their team with a lot of ball. But they really didn't use the ball well, and that was the thing. They never really generated quick ball. They never looked to generate much quick ball. They didn't move the ball with much imagination at all. It was very tight. It was very deliberate. Jack Goodhue didn't see the ball at all in the match. So we noticed that around 60 minutes. He hadn't seen the ball all day, and he's a really interesting and fun player. Again, Havili at 12, there are question marks over him.
It stops a lot of play. It's something like we talk about that, the 12. We've talked about it before on this podcast. We're definitely of the opinion, certainly even in the more modern game, I feel in the next 5 years there'll definitely be a shift towards not even a second out and out distributor. You'll want someone quite physical, but who is a really, really crisp passer off either hand as well. You need like two to three like passers in your back line close to your scrum half, so that you can link up. Because this crash ball thing, this exclusive crash ball, where like yes, they're very powerful and dynamic and low, and they can make inroads in the tight. It's blinkered, and it also just takes a lot of the deception you can run out of your backline, because a lot of it has this knock-on effect, I think, with a lot of the simulation or a lot of the lines that are run. The defense is just it becomes too telegraphed, even though he's physical and even though it may win the collision. It's too telegraphed, and it means the defenses can leave him or like trust their inside man, because they know they're not going to let him go and then follow out to where the threats are.
In a few years' time, it's definitely true that kind of player, like, people are going to wonder what teams were thinking with Matt Banahan's at 12 and things like that. It's like, it's just not
Shantae Happy
back in the day. Like they just do have a stifling effect on what the backline does, and it's definitely better to have another distributor or another semi-distributor.
This is it. A distributor doesn't mean having someone like if you have a Bernard Foley or you have a George Ford or someone in that backline around there, it does weaken you, and that means that if you're pushing someone like we were discussing with the Lions, like Owen Farrell is slightly physical, but maybe not as physical as you'd want in that channel, and it does definitely leave inroads. Now, granted, they got the draw.
I think it depends on what you have outside you.
It does, but you'd much rather though an Owen Farrell type player who has the build of a Serpentine, maybe. Slightly bigger.
If you put Serpentine together in a centre with Kurandrani, then it might be just a little too. I definitely would prefer. I think one of your 12 or 13 has to be at least something of a distributor. Like your 13 can be your link man to the back three, or your 13 can be a Kurandrani, and then you would need that 10-12 combination. Of passers of a ball. As far as Havili's concerned, he's not that bad. He's not a cliched ball carrying type. I just don't know if he has the vision to link.
That's it. I just think that when your first instinct, with a lot of those types of players, they've grown up and been trained through like hard carries. They've had a lot of their success on the pitch through hard carries, and when you're doing that, you can just get the battle visor down and be slightly blinkered on either side. Whereas obviously with a big rangy fullback in the open field, you're going to be meerkatting the whole day and you're watching everything. But needs to be a bit more from that, from Havili's point of view, I think. And there's still growth there to be had. Like, he still has good hands. He can pass.
Sure,
he has the skills. It's just a little bit more just the instinct of being too narrow in your head, and it's only the split step, especially when you're tired or something around the 60th minute, it can just revert to type, and that type being a bit too much of a blunt instrument.
The Hurricanes, as far as they're concerned, it was an interesting game. I think it was a really good game. It was one of the better games of the whole season, this game. It was back and forth. It was compelling.
Yeah. And it was very two different looks from side. That's what I'm very interested in the finalists we have now, just because they're all very, very different teams. And even the New Zealand teams, they're all different. Yeah. Like the conference has a really interesting look. The Hurricanes I kind of fear for in this knockout stage thing. I don't think they're going to go all the way. And I can see that coming from just like that. There's been a lot of kicking. There's been a lot of speculative kicking from them.
I think they're going to be the first team to go to Ellis Park.
Yeah.
So if they that could be interesting. Like that's probably possibly the weakest challenge. I know they ended up finishing second in the conference, but I definitely feel like Chiefs and Highlanders are on the up.
Yeah.
Where Crusaders and Canes might be just stalling a little, but the Canes, to their
Canes
credit,
do have a lot of
tries,
weapons, and they did find tries.
What's good about them is again, as you say, a lot of weapons. So they were a little bit tossed together, that whole back line.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting one because we were watching Geordie Barrett at 13, which is the case.
Was an improvised selection.
Yeah, off the back of an injury last minute.
This week they've put him in there.
Yeah, and I'm fearful about that.
Watching him. He was definitely good in doing what he does, which I actually think he plays like a really traditional fullback. He comes from deep, he picks hard lines, he's great vision for a line, he's got a great boot on him, he's great in the air, very athletic, and smart guy. Picks lines really well. I don't know if he's a distributor. I don't know if he's a crisp passer
when he has the time to be, but under the when he really has to fire one on, sometimes they leak a bit more.
No, but he's good at picking a hard line.
He is very good at that, and he's 6'5". Yeah. He's a giant in the backfield, which is class for the aerial battle. And obviously the Highlanders are kicking a lot, or sorry, the Hurricanes are kicking a lot of ball, more so than you would have traditionally associated with New Zealand teams. But I kind of fear for that. Like, obviously, Beauden Barrett's an excellent crossfield operator as well.
Good all around the pick. And so was Ottery Black this week.
Ottery Black had an amazing game.
His try was really good, and I expect Beauden to be very much like that. So very much intelligent, looking for those holes,
and offering posing a threat himself throughout as well.
And that's what Ottery Black did for Geordie Barrett's try. But just with Lamape in that centre partnership, one wonders: is it going to be stifling? Are you going to be able to get Julian Sevilla into the game with ball in hand?
Or are you just going to be kicking it across to him?
Which is, again, can be marked.
Exactly.
And again, you got Henry Spate for the Brumbies over there, so he's obviously a talented player. What are you going to do with Milner Scudder? He's been on the wing for much of the season. He's finally into fullback. Is he going to come in as a distributor? Is he going to come in and get his hands on the ball in those tight situations? One hopes. But in general, the main concern, like, they have a lot of weapons in attack, and they've got a lot of smart guys using them quite well. The real concern with Geordie Barrett is in defence. He got stood up with Israel Dag.
Yes.
And there are issues.
Obviously, it is Israel Dag. He's going to step a lot of people. He's a very classy footballer, but he's shot, and it's those reads, and like a lot of, like, obviously the 13, a lot has been made in the last few years about just how hard, how difficult a position it is to defend from, how you really have to be leading the defence in the modern game. That's what we're questioning a lot as well with South African teams, is kind of the role of the 13 in whatever they're doing defensively, because a lot of times he's either up or down or
mostly
not.
He's just down.
It's just
drifting.
Like no kind of direct leadership and talk from him. Like, this is it, Geordie. Like, I don't know, but how much talking is he doing on the pitch? If he's a traditional fullback, he's obviously a bit far away from the boys usually,
for sure,
to sink into 13 and be leading the defensive line, pushing up, making intelligent reads and backing it. And that's something as well, like when we were discussing the Lions and who was going to slot into fullback, obviously we were all aboard the McKenzie bandwagon instead of
for the All Blacks.
Sure. But
he
did a good job.
But they were missing something from someone like McKenzie.
Something, I think, the decisiveness. I'm genuinely think Geordie Barrett, because he's such an intelligent player, he's trying to read the whole game a lot. He doesn't quite play on instinct. He plays a lot on what he sees and what he reads and what he thinks is happening, which does leave room for pause through doubt or like committing to the wrong idea. So I have a question mark over that. Now, the fact that it's Kieran Daragh opposite him, I think maybe stacks up a little well. That makes the
like just a day of hitting.
Could work, because you need a bit, because he's, as I said, he's 6'5". He's physical, able for the hits in that. Like, the collisions in the 13 channel are bigger and more intense than they've ever been. So the 13s are growing.
Yeah, I wonder how much the decision to put Geordie at 13 and Nehe at fullback, as opposed to perhaps the other way around, because Milner Scudder, of course, has played 13 before.
Yeah.
I wonder how much that was coloured by the fact that Curran Drani is opposite him, and he wanted a like for like making those hits, because perhaps one of the Brumbies' paths to victory was Curran Drani running through someone like Milner Scudder and causing problems.
So maybe that's the thought behind it, and plus the fact that they have all these players, like, you want to accommodate them on the pitch somewhere, use your weapons as well, even if that means a slightly haphazard.
Like, that was my thought from an offensive point of view. If you got Laumape at 12, like, I think the offense might have a nicer look to it if you had Milner Scudder at 13 and Jordy Barrett coming in from fullback.
Well, maybe they can do that. The numbers on the jerseys don't preclude that from happening, and I'm sure that will be like approach. They'll have many different looks. That's like with ball in hand, they are an impressive team. Sometimes they've struggled in the pack, and obviously the Crusaders even they did find the scores to put 31 on them on a day when their pack was not getting the upper hand.
Does say something about their potency in front of the try line. Yeah, they're really good at finding tries. And again, like that Julian Sevilla cross kick over Daragh was great. Yeah, there were a lot of really tidy scores.
That has been a trend as well. Yeah, they're very much when they come off, they look very much like training pad moves, and they're very, very elegant and just neat. Yes, neatly done. Yes, a lot of their highlights from this season have looked very well and polished. But definitely that pack is where I have the question marks. And if
big games needed from the likes of Brad Shields. Obviously Artie Sevilla hasn't been on top form. Needs to regain some of that. Yeah, I think they're just a little with the likes of Brad Shields and Artie. Like, if you just look at the big form on the big body types. When you put up someone like a Matt Todd or like a Sam Kane or any Jackling 7 is going to have a field day, because those big boys are not built for getting. They don't quite have the right physique for being the most effective kind of Pocock, Richie McCaw type. Sure,
Jackling over the ball. And I think they could struggle if teams freeze them out and aren't dumb enough to kick them into the game as well.
One of the Brumbies' great strengths.
Yes,
is getting over the ball, Jackling, being a nuisance, providing slow ball, and making TJ
making it messy. Everything. Yeah, make it messy for the 9, and then hopefully messy for the 10, and get a quick line in
Good
defense.
Thing about TJ though is, from a Hurricanes weapons perspective, he can handle a mess.
He can. He's very physical, even though
against the Satyrs. There's a lot of
he had a very frustrated game for a lot of it. We were watching it. He was very much pumped up and
crucially managed to set up that score.
Exactly, kept a clear head. He's one of those ones, like one of those players who definitely fires hot. He's a hot-blooded scrum half who's very yappy. He's very angry. He's very just expressive on the pitch, but he does keep a clear head and he makes good decisions.
Responds well to adversity.
Yeah, and pressure, and he really does. He rises, he's a lovely, lovely player, and he's a key in that combination.
I think he definitely proved last week that the All Blacks should have used him more.
Definitely,
they brought him on. I think old tests it was like 72, 73 minutes.
No time to settle into the game or make an impact on the game.
And very often the way TJ games look is he can get shaken up early and shaken up for the first 10 minutes he's on the pitch, and then find a play. Yeah. So
it was one thing I said before that tour. I was hoping that New Zealand would be like experimenting, or just not experimenting, but just like mixing it up. Week 1, go for this team. Week 2, do this team with TJ at 9, and some change and play a different game with these different weapons because they have so many. But I was a bit disappointed with that. Anyway, I do digress on that one. But we'll move on to the next one down on the list is the Rebels.
Well, do you want to talk about the Crusaders a little more? I mean,
well, obviously,
we've covered them. We've covered them mostly. Most of the issues was just the ball in hand thing.
Well, okay, we've been watching them win all season, so no one's writing them off. And you look through their pack, and just player for player across the pitch and on the bench, they have a lot of class.
I don't think that Cody Taylor was playing last week. He wasn't. In fact, I remember. So that's a big impact player to come back into that team. So that pack is probably the best in Super Rugby.
That's it. It's been
possibly accepting the Chiefs pack. The spines of them are very similar. You've got Cody Taylor and Scott Barrett, and then you've got that world class back row of Tafua, Todd and Reed. They get very difficult to play against. They're going to provide their team with a lot of ball. The question marks really are over how they use it and how quickly. Where they have been good is maintaining their systems, but with really quick ball.
Yes. Yeah.
So when they get going, when they get into a groove, it's constant, and then they find the space because they're constantly shifting the ball. What's missing actually perhaps is Ryan Crotty. Definitely would help.
Yeah, a little bit of creativity and like just imagination in the 13 channel as well.
Yeah, but they got to get Goodhue into the game is the other thing.
He was really frozen out. Certainly in the last game we watched, he barely saw the ball at all. And but one of the things I like, you're definitely right in terms of that rhythm. They attack with such dynamism, and they do keep their structure, but it's very much like as soon as they get into that groove and they're going gain line, it's speed and it's power, and it's very hard to stop. Although if you do disrupt
the wings when you tighten up, and it's very simple.
It is,
as opposed to the Hurricanes, who look very elegant. All of Crusaders tries tend to look very simple. Much less of the Nemani Nadolo flair, and much more of just a backline in its groove, much like, as we said earlier in the season, like a Leinster of 2011.
Looks
just
that way.
Constant chugging train that's churning out tries.
And it is, we know, very, very difficult to stop, and especially it's a style of play that I feel lends itself to momentum as well, because you can break teams with it, really, especially if they don't front up in the first quarter. You can see.
Well, I remember earlier in the season when they were constantly getting those comeback wins at the start of the season, like against the Highlanders when they were 24 points down. And there was just an inevitability to the win that was coming. It was try and it was try. Yeah. You were in awe of it when you were watching it, but it just like those old All Black teams, you felt there was just an inevitability of the tries that were coming to win them the game, and that's something that they need to get back. And I think the starter for that is quick ball.
Yes, and that means for any team that comes to face them, that is priority number one, is disrupting that rhythm that they love to get in, and it'll involve both aggression at the breakdown and messiness there, but also just getting up off the gain line and hitting them
into their faces,
stopping them, and that's where we're questioning. Like
we've never seen Moanga really face an accomplished blitz defense. No. We know that he's good with quick ball in Moanga, but we haven't really seen him face. He was a little bit frozen out of that game. He obviously tossed a few lovely passes in the first few minutes, but
largely kind of anonymous from there, and
very much so. I think
that's not all that reassuring. Like obviously that'll be another path to victory for whoever faces them, but I definitely feel the Crusaders are well suited to match up against these South African teams coming forward. I think I think they could bully them and humble them.
Well, they're up against. Don't forget, they're not up against the Safa team. They've avoided them. They're up against the Highlanders.
I know, I don't know, like they have to get past that hurdle. That'll be more of a test.
Highlanders handled that Lions blitz.
They did.
Forget.
I know.
So the Crusaders blitz is like a pale imitation of what the Lions were doing. So that's going to be.
Yeah, I know. It is interesting because we have seen that mold before in the Northern Hemisphere, like you said, Leinster as well, but like even Ireland and when they're purring, do a lot of that systematic chugging along, punch, and then the width
even
is
English
there. English teams look like that consistently as well. It's how they love to play. So it's an interesting approach for a New Zealand team to have, but they're super efficient and they're all classy players. So
and they're sort of using their strengths. I mean, as good as Goodhue is, and as good as Havili is, and Daragh obviously is right back at the back.
Yeah, he's a lovely footballer.
Like there are good footballers in that back line, but it's not the best back line in the comp. It is the best pack in the comp.
It is, yeah. So you have to, obviously the players you have and the weapons you have to utilize them smartly. So that's what they're doing. It just means it matches up pretty interestingly with some of the flash that's available elsewhere.
Like Ben Smith and Naholo and these boys,
like these guys making reads all day long. They need to have the ball to do it though.
The other thing that the Highlanders are going to do is kick a lot of ball away. So the Crusaders can mind the ball. They could freeze that attack.
That's what I fear as well. Like because it's such a danger. We saw the Brumbies do it, and they were bullied for it as well. Just the ability to keep the ball, and obviously that Crusaders pack is great going forward, and they have jacklers in there to steal. They can steal ball, but if they're matched there, and the team doesn't just aimlessly kick it down their throat and let them try again whenever they stop them, but puts them through pressure, deprives them of ball, and just doesn't allow them to establish that rhythm and establish that just the inevitability comes when they're just breaking gain line and winning all those collisions, which happens games have to mature for them to get into that rhythm, get settled into making those hits, and if you have them tackling instead, that's one way to shut them out
for sure.
And that was something that the Lions did. That was how they beat the Lions. It was a bit ugly. They weren't polished enough to take the chances they did create, but they kept a lot of ball on the Crusaders and left the Crusaders looking little bit aimless when they did have the ball because they just had no rhythm, had no idea.
And we
really
have certainly seen Lima Supalonga have those kind of games from 10 where he's just lost.
Yeah, and he's also, we've made the point before, of all the cross kickers from 10, he's a little bit floaty. Sometimes under pressure, a little bit too much air, and he got picked off for one of them.
He did, that's right. Yeah.
But so that, like, if you put them under those that kind of pressure where he's frantically decide, no, we'll try this.
But the thing that can happen is if Crusaders don't find tries with a lot of their ball, much like what happened with the Hurricanes game, is the Highlanders can find tries on a fraction of possession.
Yes.
You got Ben Smith and Naholo and
they only need a bunch of, and they have no problem going coast to coast either. It can be a turnover and they will go wide, and they have the skills and the pace out wide. If the space
is there, they can exploit it. And, Ben Smith rarely goes wrong.
No, he does not. Yeah, this is it. And it's great to see him back as well. That's another thing.
100%.
Finally. We're raging he missed out on him on the Lions tour, and the fact that we didn't get to see Damien McKenzie, we will have a segment on Damien McKenzie to come as well, because we need to talk about that boy. But we will move on now just to wrap up a few other ones. There were ones obviously that of less consequence. The Rebels got beaten by the Jaguares in their last game of the regular season and season, and maybe the last game for them.
Justice in the world,
it should be them, because my God, ever since I've been watching Super Rugby, which has been five years or so now.
Consistently watching.
The
first year the Chiefs won was when I started watching. So they were back-to-back years. I think the first year might have been 2011.
Right, so maybe more than. But literally that whole time the Rebels have brought nothing to the games, and they don't win anywhere near it, and like. They don't seem to have any identity. They don't seem to be trying to do anything with it.
It's constantly changing.
It's shifting around.
About Reece Hodge, and Reece Hodge looked really good, really tight.
He's a good player. Yeah,
he was taking the ball back against the grain. He was finding space. But again, it's an ever evolving team. Sometimes they're just about kicks. Sometimes they have no identity. They have no personality. Yeah. There's nothing interesting about them, and then they just lose games. Yeah, and it's just it's a little bit bizarre. It's not a Super Rugby level team, and
exactly.
Just you can put a full stop on that.
Yeah.
As far as this game is concerned, they did well enough. Yeah. They started the half again. It was the Reece Hodge show. He was doing really good stuff. Jaguares were toothless as they have been.
Sometimes, yeah.
But then, in the second half, they just coughed up their lead without firing a bullet. They were. There's been
a painful, like on Aussie commentators as well, on all season long when they're in the lead. There's just there's a constant fear of just oh no, here come the tries now. It's just
they were making the point. It's like they have a 12-point lead, but we have known that the Rebels this season, 12-point leads have never been enough. and so it proved.
Yeah, and crazy again.
Jaguares are the more interesting team.
They are.
When are they going
up and down?
When are they going to generate any kind of consistency? Because it really, this was a year for them. You had the last wild card place was sort of jostling between the Sharks and the Blues and the Jaguares in the early part of the season, and then just a few ridiculous results at home and away from home that just lost them the season. I think they lost to the Kings at home.
I certainly think that something about the Jaguars, the same criticisms we've been leveling at pretty much all of the South African conferences, and just a general trend in their teams versus their national side. Like the Springboks are obviously bullying, very physical type team, and yet you watch their club teams defend and you're questioning where is that. And the same is true for Argentina. Argentina traditionally are big, strong, love scrummaging, love the nitty-gritty title game.
Their national team do love to run the ball.
Their national team, this generation of their national team, it's a very new thing, and it's been since they've been in the Rugby Championship. They do love running the ball. They've had to do it because they've been in the Rugby Championship. They've had to develop that. It worked in the World Cup. I just think sometimes, especially more so in a Jaguares jersey than their Argentinian jerseys, but they just forget about the type. They get bullied sometimes. They switch off.
Also, it just feels to me like every Jaguares game looks like a preseason game. Yeah. There's no intensity, there's no direction, there's no purpose to anything that they're doing. Yeah, it's all one wonders if a coaching switch might be what changes this up, because they really do look they look free, and when they look good, they look really good.
The results are less than the sum of their parts. That was it. Like sure. when the Jaguares were established as a franchise, and we were looking at the players on their roster, and you're going like, whoa. these are legit. These are going to be a class team.
Last year, they were like 6th favourite to win the whole title.
Yeah. And it was purely based off paper.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to think that they shouldn't be playing really, really well and putting it up.
That playoffs.
And make more of like there are a few things like their home games need to become a bit more of a fortress than they are. They're a bit too prone to looking. Yeah, properly pre-season. Like you say, looking like a pre-season game, not matching that intensity, but feeding off the crowd, not making hits, not really buying into the physicality of the game first before they start aimlessly passing. And a good blitz can often stifle them to the point that they just throw into it. It's true too. Yeah, they're very wide, and their wingers are classy, and they're full like Tuchel is such a class player. He's one of my favorite fullbacks. Possibly my favourite fullback, Ben Smith.
Come on now.
Well, Ben Smith, Damien McKenzie,
but
Tuchel is class. He's a really good operator. He's really clever and calm. But yeah, like they need like some impetus to come, and it has to come next season, obviously. But maybe a coaching switch, just a fresh look, because like any coach would love to,
or something like that. Like
maybe
something to give.
But just like any coach would only love to get in there and work with those players, the players of the caliber that they have. They shouldn't be struggling the way that they are, and they shouldn't be up and down. And there's even in terms of the level of opposite, they struggle against. They do have some big game temperament where they can put it up to some teams some weeks, but then other weeks they get blown out. It looks
like a barbarian performance, doesn't it? Like the big plays that come from their pack are just Creevy doing something.
Yeah, Creevy is amazing, but
but he's just doing something mad. Like he's just freestyling it. And,
it's jazz.
Yeah, exactly.
The Jaguar is doing rugby jazz.
A little bit, but they're not focused, and there isn't a direction. It's sort of the main
that's
the problem there.
Exactly. Now it was enough to see off the Rebels, or maybe the Rebels just saw off themselves
a little bit,
we did also have
hopefully into the night,
because we did also have Force Waratahs, which was probably our favourite game of the weekend. That was such fun, because like you couldn't have
watch.
I know. It's like everything came up good. Hodjo.
I think I like everybody else fell in love with the Force in the years of Nick Cummins, and with that huge crowd and the sea of blue. And they had a wonderful personality to them. They did kick the ball a lot.
They weren't necessarily the prettiest team.
No,
but this is more important was the identity thing.
They had a personality to them. Yeah, and they had an attitude about them. And even when they were getting knocked, there was always something about them. And Matt Hodgson again embodies that in so many ways.
Such a true 7, like an old school open side.
100%.
He's just a jackal all through and through. And it was great to see him bag a bit of meat.
Yeah, and a penalty. We've seen in our lives many disastrous ends to careers, or many just ambiguous ends to careers.
Yeah.
And even though Matt Hodgson is the biggest player of the world, perhaps in my opinion, maybe didn't get capped as much as he should have. Although he did grow up in an era where that back row position was very competitive.
Yeah.
But he's a cracking player, and just to see in this little world to get like a really nice end. Yeah. To what has been a really
at home
great career.
To absolutely stuff the Waratahs, who were truly abject in the rain,
and they deserve
to be stuffed. They had nothing. They really had nothing by the end of the game. They did try to get back into it, and just it all fell flat and very, very quickly. Yeah. They just did no creativity in it, and the Force bullied them all day. They started really quickly, got dotted down a try.
The Force is like I remember hearing those East Coast Aussie commentators trying to colour the picture into like plucky Force, or just outwilling the sexy Taz. But like the Force were playing rugby when they saw space, they were going for it,
and they were getting inroads,
and they were certainly, their hands were better than the Waratahs. Their vision for space was better than the Waratahs. They were better at finding tries, and they did find tries. And it was just, as a whole, they were just looked a much better, much more tidy together team. And they're not a playoff level Super Rugby team, but they are a Super Rugby level team.
Yes, 100%.
And they certainly deserve to be there. And ever since they've been called into question, they have made statement after statement saying, no, we do not want this.
And the turnout and their crowd thing has been much better. It's like, it's a no-brainer. And like, I don't know who we're appealing to, but hopefully it's not one of those bizarre decisions made on nothing, where like, or money or anything else. But I don't know what
money's in the well.
Yeah, because exactly, they're not bringing anything in. The Force have that identity, and they are a legit team, and they are the only representation on that entire side of the continent. So it's like, come on, leave them there. They just put 40 points on the Waratahs, sure, as well. Yeah. So
you gotta hand it to them.
You really do. It was such an all round performance, and like peppered with those lovely moments of like a big scrum, clumsy at the end, and just up it pops and he dots it down, the man of the moment. It's just, and then gets to chip over penalty for the last kick of the game. Yes. No, it's like couldn't write anything better. But
and do you remember his 100th cap was my favourite ever Super Rugby game, was also against the Waratahs, a much better Waratahs, when Nick Cummins got his hat-trick.
Yeah, that
was also in the Sea of Blue, and he also had his great game where he jackled the whole time. So again, he's had some really great days that he can look back on. And here's to you, Matt Hodgson. What
much love from Northern Hemisphere. We've been watching.
We've been watching. Respect, bro. Respect.
And same goes to the Force as well. He's very much an embodiment in many ways of that team, and that he's like the reception he got was great for it, and just it was great to see. It was like
they looked a team.
Yeah,
they looked a proper match, club. They were slapping each other on the back, and they looked like they were also playing for their survival in a way.
They were, definitely. And whereas the Waratahs
playing for nothing,
and it really looked poor. It really looked poor, and question marks like, will Falau stay there? Should he stay there?
Izzy Falau is going to get an offer from somewhere up north in France, and it's going to be a very difficult one, especially if they have a rough rugby championship this year. It's going to be a very difficult thing to refuse for him, because I mean,
what's he sticking around for?
He is playing well.
He's playing well,
and he's being frozen out of matches. He's not being given a chance to express himself at all.
No,
he's scrambling.
He is always scrambling and hustling.
Upset. And I mean, he has every right to.
It's constantly been cutting to him with his hands on his hips after a play, which he actually played quite well in, but then it ended up falling apart later down. It's just this abject look of. Like, just there's no, with this Waratahs team, they are certainly shook from their to their core, in like same as the whole Aussie conference in terms of confidence. They seem to have no direction or confidence in what they're doing, or no confidence in that if they do what they're planning to do, that a try will come. It seems like they're thinking, well, it's going to be a knock on, isn't it? And it's like, based on the evidence, it's been a real head scratching season as far as what the Aussies have brought. Like, that's been part of it is the format as well. The format hasn't helped the tournament as a whole to look competitive, but also the fact that the Aussie teams haven't been competitive hasn't helped with that either. And I just don't know what to point to for that. And it's like, I really do feel for Cheika, having watched like, left them in grand shape, and then watched it all go to hell. And get them back in now. He wants to get them in with a month or upwards of a month to just put a full stop on this season.
Draw a line under this, and let's forget about it. Otherwise, the rugby championship is going to be a non-starter. Is sort of what he was saying. He was quite blunt. Yeah, he's picked his squad. Always. Yeah, he's got the boys in now.
He's left Quaid out,
which I think is fine.
I think it's fine. He's not the future.
Quaid isn't the future. Quaid isn't anything except like a wild card that you throw into a match. But again, this isn't the season for a wild card, because you don't need a wild card. You need to build something real. Yeah. So they need to build towards the 2019 World Cup. I don't think anyone is pretending that they're going to have a chance of winning the rugby championship or have a chance of doing a Grand Slam tour in November. They're not. They're not that good yet. It's foundation time. Yeah. It's rescue something out of this season time. Yeah. And Cheika has a job to do, and I think he's started it quite well. He's spoken bluntly. Yeah. It's got to be a confidence thing. We've got to do something similar to Declan Kidney in 2008, taking the boys out to Kildare and having like a heart to heart about what's going wrong with rugby and really getting into touch with their roots. Yeah. And that's what they got to do. They got to go on retreats. Yeah. And just
team building exercise,
it's O'Shea thing as well. Like, focus the minds on something. Yeah, focus them on doing a job, and
take back that pride as well. Obviously, like they do play with a pride and passion in a Wallaby jersey that maybe a lot of them don't share for their clubs. I don't know, but certainly, like, Cheika he's good at emboldening a lot of people. He's a blunt man. He speaks.
I think he's the right guy for this job.
I do think he's a perfect suit for any Wallaby side. He's exactly what they need, is that bit of grit and that bit of slap in the face, do your job.
Specific job of having to get these guys together.
Yeah,
right I don't think there's any coach in World Rugby could perhaps do a better job. So I think it's in the right hands, and the question marks just remain. And if they do get it right, the talent is there in the Waratahs.
The talent has always been there. Like, even though it's consistently a thing, like they're similar to Ireland, they have their resources split amongst. They're not the only sport. In fact, they're nowhere near the most popular. They're struggling. Their player base is small.
It's worse in Australia than it is in Ireland.
It's much worse. Yeah, like rugby union's been growing in Ireland, even coming from that framework of having like GAA and football and and golf and anything else to contend with. there's like rugby has consistently in the professional area been growing here, whereas it seems to have been dwindling in Australia, and just kind of they've been backed up. Like I did read more recently that the last Lions tour to Australia has basically funded a lot of what their rugby has been for the last few years. A lot of their income has come from just that. So they're struggling from grassroots all the way up to the top. And the one thing that has been a constant, and it's been very good for them, is that their A team, they do have like 30 maybe players who are elite level players, and they're really good rugby players, and they do have an identity of very attacking team as well. They love playing with ball in hand. They have a lot going for them still, and you don't want to see the Wallabies drift away. And same as the Springboks. We were talking about the Springboks last year. Don't want to see any kind of dip. We want people, those two teams, rising up to where New Zealand are at, to be pushing the progress of the game that way, whereas it doesn't help anyone if two teams tail off and then New Zealand New Zealand winning rugby championships out of canter and without getting out of fourth gear is not what anyone wants to see. Not even New Zealand either.
I think we've seen this year that complacency has kicked in a little bit, and then just that constant not being tested doesn't help them.
That's it, and it could be good for South African teams in this playoff now if that happens, if that comes to pass, where the fact that these New Zealand teams have come in bullied by any other opposition they've come across in the regular season, they've just blown past them.
I certainly think you made the point during the tour, and I agree, is that Lions tour
has definitely hardened some of those edges. They've got some match games now, and they've already focused in and been in tour mode, and now they're in final mode after that. And
as a whole country, I think they've sort of, as opposed to just being in that like cloud nine that they were in going into that tour, it's definitely brought them back to earth, but it's also hopefully given them a hardened edge and given them reasons to think and given them ways to progress.
Yeah.
So I think that Lions tour has probably done wonders for
New Zealand rugby. Yeah.
And perhaps maybe to the detriment of some of these SAFA sides looking to go in and sort of what would be the word, to just pickpocket Super Rugby from its rightful owners.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it could happen though. Just such is the scheduling, but they still have to win 3 games, and that's easier said than done at this point because they're all quality sides left in the comp. What other games were there? There were briefly touched. So, yes, the Sunwolves.
Yeah, these are all the games.
The Blues.
I didn't see.
And that was such a mad game. It did kind of come down to a crucial period where Kino again getting sent off crucially, and then while he was absent, it was another kind of high hit, which I think I was kind of reflecting on it, going like, it's not just Kino, but I think a lot of number 6s with this new interpretation of the game of the head contact. A lot of what number 6s are doing in terms of how to do a wrap tackle and stuff. If you're a big frame guy who's taller than the guy who's going into contact and the guy's ducking, a lot of the time you're going to connect with the head. So there's maybe going to have to be a technical change on what some of those guys are doing, especially like the Sonny Bill hit and all. There's been a trend. So, but it definitely did pay because Sunwolves put in 2 tries in that period. But that's to take nothing away from the Sunwolves, because it was kind of like that the day in South Africa they played against South Africa in the World Cup game, where it's just they were so sharp and things just came off and the balls were sticking and the offloads were sticking, and the Blues very early, like the Blues did take a lead, but then they got back into the game, and it was just they were very much in a game, and it was crucially through the Kino yellow card ultimately was where the dam broke, but it was going touch and go, and then once the dam broke, Sunwolves did not stop scoring. It was just try after try.
Team, because they can be really good, and they can also be really bad. A bit like Japan, like sometimes it just clicks. Yeah, maybe that Ireland tour got them into gear.
Could have been.
Maybe that schooling from Fat de Klerk got them into gear. You don't know. But
it could have been any one of those. Yeah, because like that was the other thing. Like
we've watched so abject against the Lions. Again, maybe the Lions are really, really good. Like this is what we don't know. This is
what we don't know as well. Maybe the Lions will turn up and just run in tries and bully teams and be really physical as well. And like maybe
because they do have a nice balance to them.
They do, and like they obviously athletically can match them as well. And like even when Fat de Klerk slots into 9, he's arguably slots into 10. He's arguably more physically domineering than Yankees, you know, like so.
At least he takes it to the line.
Yeah, exactly. But, which is,
I do think Cronya's injured, so I think Faf will actually be starting at 9 coming into this weekend.
Right. So that's a good. Like that's one of they do have 2 world class level 9s in that team. It's kind of interesting.
The Sunwolves beat the Blues.
But the Sunwolves beat the Blues. Let's put a stop on that, because that's a huge win for them. That's probably the biggest win of that franchise's existence thus far. I'd say so. Really good win. And done in some style. They ran in a load of tries in front of their home crowd. It's great. I mean, like, and Japan, as we've said before, seem to be just thoroughly buying into rugby, and they're buying into the Sunwolves, and they have their own domestic league, and the cherry blossoms are going great as well. It's Japan are here to stay.
Consistency will come with time.
Yeah,
for the Sunwolves. Absolutely,
and a culture and an ethos in that team will also be developed in time.
They're developing a game that, while it can be susceptible to the odd 94-0 shock, like, it's better than being conservative.
Yeah,
and
like what Italy have done for so long, where it's like, well, or even Scotland before this Scotland resurgence, where it was just this acceptance of, right, we're the inferior team, so we have to make this a messy, horrible, terrible game where it's scrappy and it's physical, and we get to be attritional, and we maybe throw them off kilter and maybe nick a result. We can't be doing that, because there's no way to grow. Whereas what Eddie Jones has instilled since his time in Japan, it was like, I love it about it, the way they played, and I've seen Eddie mention this in interviews, going like, well, we know that we're not the most physical team. We are at a disadvantage in terms of attributes. So we have to be really quick and really efficient, technically efficient in everything you do. You can see that in their scrummaging technique. You can see it in how quick their lineouts are drilled, how their lineout maul is set up, and how their backline moves work. They're always very quick, very polished and pristine. They can be bullied though, and I think it happened in this tour, especially in the first test with Ireland, where if a team who is physically dominant over them, like in England or in Ireland or New Zealand or South Africa or any of those teams that are bigger and stronger than them, if they get the edge in the first half, in the first quarter specifically, if they bully them in a few hits, hurt them with a few hits, and run in 1 or 2 tries, the dam breaks, and that's where you get your shellackings, where they're not in the game, and they're never in the game. They don't get settled.
Really happens to their scrum.
Yeah, when they can get no ball. So they can break, but they can also play. And it's great to see, and they are only going to get better.
I gotta be honest, I didn't see that game. I didn't see any of the remaining games that happened. But
what else was there? Stormers and Bulls was actually a really good game. It was like, it was a good game in terms of, it was a really good contest, where it was like 1 try for one, and then comeback try, and then a try, and then a comeback try. It was back and forth the whole time, really close, and then it ultimately ended up being with the Stormers winning. There are still so many questions over the defense of both of those teams, though. It was sometimes so passive, and there was 1 try Cheslin Colby scored where he had no right to score it at all. He just rolled his way through, and the lines are fragmented a lot of times in defense with these teams.
Stormers
both.
Okay. Yeah.
Both were like, just, I don't know, they weren't making all these hits. Like, the combination, that the centre partnership for the Bulls is very good.
That's the centre partnership for the Springboks.
It is, yeah. Serfontein and Creel is really good, and like Creel bagged a couple of scores. Serfontein actually played really well as well, and like, even it was symptomatic as well.
The thing that the Boks do, which is interesting, is they don't have their 13 lead the defence, or at least they didn't against France. They had Serfontein leading the defence, and he was doing a good job of shutting down that French attack. That
can work for them. It definitely lends into South African mindset of just being that little bit more narrow, a little bit more direct, pushing up early and making hits, and like just playing that pressure game. They're able to do it. And
was that happening from the Bulls?
Not all that much. Yeah. It was sometimes happening. They did make 1 or 2 good hits. They're good reads, but then other phases, just nothing happening. They're standing off, and you're just wondering why that is. I don't know. And it's too easy to find tries against a lot of those teams, and too many of these South African derbies as well have been too high scoring. They've been like, the defenses have not impressed the same way the attacks. And like, it is still a question mark. Maybe their attack is just so good that it's going to happen. I just don't. I'm definitely seeing flaws in how they're defending across. I
don't think there's any pretense that they attack at a level that
was irresistible.
Yeah, what's happening in New Zealand? I don't think that's true. I don't think they're doing more creative things with the ball than say the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So how is it then that a Chiefs Crusaders game can finish 17-16, and then like Stormers Bulls or Stormers Lions is finishing 47 to 36?
Indeed, and that's been happening all season long, and it's like even longer than that. It's something that has been a disconnect for many years between how South Africans
slowly in these last few years they've been losing a defensive identity as a nation. They've been letting in tries, and they have been. It isn't this Heineken Meyer pioneering attempt, which certainly worked for a time, of trying to move the ball. And absolutely, I think they should embrace that. But they also do need to have that hard.
It can't be at the sake. As well, because like we were complimenting the Crusaders for, which is that like, you don't have the flashiest backs in the world, but what we do have is maybe the best pack. So we're going to play a game that suits that. The Springboks are definitely not always playing to their strengths that way, and the same is true of their sides. They do have the weapons there, they do have the tools to match any side.
For sure. Like, look at those second rows. You need like every bloody club.
This is it.
The
like,
Sharks, those young second rows.
The fear that is struck into the hearts of both us as like Lions fans for the last few weeks, but mainly as like Irish fans, when we're facing up against New Zealand, when you see a Brodie Retallick there and you're just going like, Jesus, we're not going to be able to match that physically. The one side maybe in World Rugby, or maybe England can as well, can maybe go like we can negate him. But the Springboks can definitely be like, he's a great player, but he's not. We're not, like, physically we're not intimidated. We can match that. And they can say that in earnest, and they have players across the park who can match their opposite men.
They need to be using their bodies.
Exactly. Use that power and bully teams.
You know what the other thing is? Like, there's a little bit of a technical inefficiency in the way that their pack are doing things. So in terms of how they tackle, how they get up, like, you can
sometimes they get away with being big and strong
better than you're using it. Like, it's all bicep. Like, you wrap a guy and you try and twirl him around and throw him. You know,
and
like,
it's
and
like,
again,
like
if you
low.
The size that you are. Use your body like a Brodie Retallick uses his body.
You'll find yourself just surfing through defenders.
Is guilty of that a bit. Like,
Peter
Steph more so is quite technical.
He is quite technical. He's also maybe slightly smaller than Etzebeth.
He's still pretty big.
He's still pretty big, but like Etzebeth, it's the same thing we were talking about with Tadhg Furlong and a lot of players, like where he grew up having the attributable advantage and therefore slacked off a bit on the technical side because you didn't have to. You could get away with it because you're swatting defenders aside like flies. So there's definitely something to that, and it's something I don't rate, certainly, like Coetzee. I think the jury's still out, or maybe I just don't think he's all that innovative of a coach.
Well, let's hope that something happens. Well, what they do have is Brendan Venter, who, if nothing else,
he's
is
clever.
an innovator, and he's coming in to manage that defence.
Yes,
so
hopefully,
as far as the Springboks are concerned going forward, that could be a good thing.
Should be good.
For Super Rugby, still question marks.
Yeah, and each of their teams, it definitely, just they need to be taking. We've said it before, just taking more pride in what they're doing without the ball. They seem perfectly content to have the ball and keep the ball and play with the ball. But as soon as they don't have the ball, they are nearly taking breaks sometimes or switching off sometimes. It's very odd to watch, and it does sometimes have a pre-season feel similar to a Jaguares one. Certainly Jaguares against any South African franchise team this year has been very high scoring and very crazy.
Laziness feel.
Yeah.
Like you get the sense when especially in these South African derbies, when a team gets into the other 22 and has their tails up, it's like they're always trying. There's always a try, and it's because the defence, like, they just let in tries that they've no right to, because they think it's always a try too. So they're just like, it'll just be a narrow carry with a hard line, and it'll just slip through two defenders and dot the ball down.
And you're just thinking, how soft is that?
It's just nonsense. You shouldn't let it happen, and especially a big Bok team like you, big South African team like you. No way. You take pride in your line. You take pride in making them take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long it is, to score that try when you're in your 22, instead of being like, okay, we'll let them in and go back and score.
This is it. Well, I'll borrow another analogy from the I think it's actually MMA analyst thing of just that mindset thing of, like, if you're a striker and someone likes to shoot in on you to take you down, either you can go, oh, he's got the takedown, or avoid it and do damage while he's doing it instead. So imagine this then from a Springbok point of view, like, you're defending your line, you could let them in and then we'll go again, or you could hit them hard, come off the line and hurt them, make it like you're trying to score. You think you're going to score a try? No, we're going to hurt you instead. That's what's going to happen, and you'll spill the ball.
The Springboks
they're always been about that.
Getting this idea that people are going to be afraid to go into a ruck.
And you think of players like Bakis Botha, who's like so attritional, and like Schalk Burger, so attritional, like so unpleasant to play against, nearly bullying on the pitch, and and obviously like physically as well. But they'll be talking all day as well, little cheeky remarks, knowing that they can't, like, what are you going to do? I've seen. I remember Mike Phillips getting roughed up by Bakis Botha. Like, Mike Phillips, obviously quite an attritional, narky player as well, and usually quite physically domineering. But not when it's Bakis Botha.
That Bok team, it's like that Lions team back in 2009 had all of the attributes, didn't they? They really did, and they were like, again, like now, you almost, like, Bok teams are nowhere near held in as negative esteem for being, like, sour and unsporting. And that's probably a good thing. I don't think you want to be the team that eye gouges players.
No,
I don't think any team wants to be that.
No,
but certainly that just bullying, suffocating attitude.
It's what a lot of English teams do so well as well when they're on the up. They're just really hard to play against, and you're not like all of your systems are falling apart. Suddenly you're getting rocked in every time. Each collision is slightly more painful than the last, and it's not going your way. And those kind of games, there's like the same way when you're watching a New Zealand team in its pomp, and you have a feeling of an inevitable try. You may not have a feeling of like an inevitable immediate try with these games, but you definitely have a prolonged feeling of just, we're not winning.
Yeah,
we're not winning this, and it happens every phase, and it happens every minute of every game. There's another hit behind the game line. You're bundled into touch over here.
Ireland can do that.
Ireland can do that now as well. We've called that. We've been saying they've been moulding themselves on a Springbok ideology.
That is Ireland are now more similar to a modern Springbok team than the Springboks are. I mean, more similar to an old Springbok team in the modern game.
Yeah.
Like but you get that sense, like when you beat England this year.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, and we said it from like months out, like Ireland just have an attitude about them.
Yeah.
England aren't going to come to Dublin and win, not this year. And
Yeah.
that was it.
And we knew it.
And we knew it. And that was what the Boks. That's kind of what the Boks need.
Yeah, they absolutely.
You're going to come to our turf and beat us? Not a chance. We're going to hurt you.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's like, we may not score the tries, but we will tackle you, and it'll hurt, and you'll feel it. And then when we're carrying, you'll feel that too. And it's really impressive. And it's a bullishness that's needed in the game, but it's also a huge disconnect with these franchises in South Africa and what the Springboks are about. And just when you're looking at them, like the same way we can compliment Japan on knowing themselves enough to recognize where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and utilizing them, with the Springboks it feels like they're getting away with it because they're still really classy rugby players. There's still such a culture producing a conveyor belt of talent. Like they're supplying a lot of the Champions Cup is propped up by world class Springbok exports.
Yeah, and beyond, like Edinburgh.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Just a bunch of random young South Africans
living in Scotland who are all class, and they can all play, and they're all very physically dominant. And it feels like their teams don't utilize what they have a lot of the time, and it feels a little bit haphazard and risky. I would say risky because you're not putting all these variables in control. It means you're leaving it up to the lap of the gods a little bit, and you're also playing, I fear for the Lions as well, because as much as they've looked very impressive, I feel like as soon as they come across a New Zealand team, they could just be outclassed, and it could be nearly one-sided. I can see them coming up against a really classy Highlanders side or Crusaders side and just being shipping a load of tries.
What are the semis going to be? Do we know?
I don't know if we know. Is it a draw to come?
I think we've already had the draw. I just wish I could see like the tournament tree.
Yeah.
As far as I can remember, I think it's going to be not the Stormers Chiefs. So the Stormers can't play the Lions in the semis. So I believe it's I think it's the Canes. That's right. I think it's the Hurricanes are going to be the first team to come up against them.
Or the Brumbies.
Or, well, no, the Hurricanes.
but if the Brumbies,
let's not be ridiculous. let's not be irrational.
Right. What if the Brumbies do it? Yeah, that would be pickpocketing the championship.
That would be
the Aussies win.
Some kind of miracle, wouldn't it?
Yeah, imagine.
Brumbies managed to do it, but like I wonder what odds you get. 100 to 1.
Yeah.
Come on.
I don't know. I hope they play well. I hope they're good. But
they played well last week. They just aren't good enough.
I know that seems to be a problem throughout.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll shift our focus with that in mind to these games coming up this weekend.
There were other games last week. The Lions played the Sharks as they're going to this week and comfortably beat them.
Yeah.
The Southern Kings and the Cheetahs played out their Pro 12 warm up game.
Their Pro 14
warm up game.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think Cheetahs won that.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, I think.
Highlanders beat the Reds.
Oh, and Carmichael Hunt had a horrendous missed tackle in that. Did you see that?
You know, even great players sometimes, you know, even for great players, I will put yes, he missed that tackle. Carmichael Hunt is still one of the real finds of this season. He can play across the park. He's physical. He can pass. He's good. He's great. He has a calm head. He's a good talker on the pitch, which I like because Aussies need to be mouthing. And he partners well enough with Quaid. Actually, he's
gone now.
Quaid's gone now, but you know he worked well with Bernard Foley. He freed up Bernard Foley as well. In the 12
No, you're not wrong.
Carmichael Hunt is one for the future. I want to see him in Wallaby jersey. I want to see him come to Dublin. I want to see him in the World Cup. Carmichael Hunt. Maybe I want to see it just so that he can fall off another tackle at a crucial time against Robbie Henshaw. But no, Carmichael Hunt, leave him alone. He's great. He is absolutely great. I just
love your love for him.
I think he's great. Just But so that did happen. The Reds again losing games against teams that they're not as good as. What else is new? Highlanders, bit of a warm-up game. I didn't watch it, I gotta be honest. I only watched those first few games we talked about. Right. Well, I don't know if we'll touch it. We've basically reviewed all the ones that we wanted to review, but we'll try and get into the previews now, because we're already an hour in. Jesus, I've only once glanced at the clock. That was an hour. That was quick. That was fun. We'll touch on the previews now, because these are really interesting games. We'll start with Lions Sharks.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's start in South Africa.
I
think it'll be the Lions who win it.
I'm gonna just call up. I remember years and years ago in the Champions Cup, there was a pool 6, and it was Biarritz and Northampton. I've talked about this. I've brought this back many a time. But what happened was Biarritz were the only team in the history of the Champions Cup to go through all 6 games with perfect scores. So it was bonus point win, 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 bonus point win. So it was 30 points on the table, and that included 2 home and away bonus point wins against Northampton, who they then finished on 20 points. And then they ended up drawing Northampton for their home quarter final, and Northampton showed up and put in the game of their lives and beat them.
Yeah.
And that is what needs to happen for the Sharks to be interesting. Yeah. Because the Sharks have been nowhere near the Lions level all season. They do have this weird hot and cold thing about them.
Yeah, they have big games occasionally.
They've always had a bit of big game balls, the Sharks. They remember when they went and beat the Crusaders in Christchurch with 14 men.
Yeah.
That was insane. What a game that was. When that was Dan Carter and Richie McCaw playing against them, that was an insane day, and they need another one.
And it's then you watch them next week, and you're watching them fall apart and flail around, and they're another head scratching club in that regard, where it's like you're watching them when they're winning versus when they're losing is like night and day, and you're looking at the same players going, how is this?
The Sharks going well is very much like what we talked about with those big Springbok teams. They have a bit of an attitude. They can be suffocating to play against, and that's what even if they don't win, I want the Lions to experience this week.
It has to. If this is another blowout, then
that's what's likely going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing for the Lions though. Maybe it is. Obviously,
this is another game. You
can only play what's in front of you, and so far they've run in tries against what's come in front of them. So that is good. But I definitely think you're right in that they need to experience a game where they're thrown off kilter, where Faf de Klerk is maybe roughed up a bit, where they're getting.
It needs to start at the breakdown, and perhaps at set piece. They need to have their ball disrupted.
Yeah, bit of line out disruption, bit of maul disruption.
Like big second rows, and they got good back row. They got a good back row. They can attack you at the breakdown. They can hurt you. Yeah. So they really need to have that fiery game where just every time the Lions take it into contact, even if they go beyond contact, the ball is snagged. They're threatened.
And someone has to be cleared out.
Yeah. Warren Whiteley is given a challenge. They actually have to be sort of
disrupted.
made to play, and disrupted is exactly right. Just to test and see if they're up for.
Yeah, because they don't know. Yeah, it's still the great unknown.
It's a real pity that this is the match. It's good to see the Crusaders lose, but on the other hand, it would have been better to see all of no derby games.
Yeah, I do. We don't want more derby games. We want the Lions to play New Zealanders. Exactly. That's what we want to see. So maybe we won't. Maybe the Sharks will embolden themselves and nick it, which would be another interesting humbling. It would be similar enough to that Biarritz side, arrive on the big day in the big moment and then choke. Could happen.
That's what needs to happen. The Sharks need to have one of those wonderful days. I got to admit, I haven't watched much of the Sharks this season. I watched them on occasion. I'm struggling to remember the names, but they have a good set of young second rows. They have a good young 10. They've definitely got talent. They've got good wingers, obviously Nundingani and Mvovo.
Pace,
they've got
and good finishing as well.
But they can be really, especially at centres and in defence, they can just be really passive sometimes. And they can look really sloppy sometimes. Sometimes the errors can just mount, and it can just become torture watching them. Yeah. But
I can only imagine what it's like to be a fan.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah. Some of these teams that just show up one day and then, don't the next, and
you never
that's
know.
Been the Sharks all season. In fact, the whole bloody lot of them, that last 3 who were vying in the early season for that playoff place, that last playoff face of the Jaguares, the Sharks, and the Blues. Obviously the Jaguars fell away, but for a lot of the season they were chucking it at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And like that comes right, even though the Blues seemed to me to be the best of them, obviously just with the tougher fixture list.
Yeah, the
fact that they threw away that last game where they had a slimmer of hope against the Sunwolves is kind of amusing.
It is funny.
It really does summarise that whole season between those three. Jostling for that last place. But the Sharks have a big game in them, so maybe they'll show.
Maybe they'll show. I don't know. Like there'll certainly be passion in it. I definitely think there'll be an intensity to it that was maybe lacking in some of these fixtures from earlier in the season. I do hope so, but I think so as well, because it is knockout rugby, and like South Africans do understand that. And the club sides do understand that, and they know what they're fighting for. But yeah, no, like in terms of predictions, I definitely think the smart money does go on the Lions, and sure, that's obviously enough.
Let's defense, please, Sharks.
Push up,
let's be tough. Let's not abandon that.
The reverse drift
as a nation. Abandon that drift, would you?
I hate the reverse drift so much.
Yeah.
Well, sure, as Irish fans, we're only so.
It just emboldens them, especially a big physical side like them. It just emboldens them.
Come on, bring it. It's basically saying, "Come on, come forward." And sure enough, that's an invitation they don't need to hear twice. So we'll kind of park that. That's actually probably one of the more somewhat clear cut. I think so, unless, as we say, the Sharks, either a combination of the Sharks having the game of their lives and a bit of the hokey chokey from the Lions.
Perhaps the Brumbies Hurricanes game is pretty clear cut as well. The other two, I don't know.
It is in Oz, so like, you know, there's a chance.
That the Wizard of Oz will show up and grant them.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
I don't think so.
We have been. That's one thing that we have been seeing, and we've been saying on this podcast, is just more and more so we're seeing the superior teams win the games,
which I like.
I do like.
But I wouldn't mind like a bit of grit to come to the fore, especially in this competition, because it does seem to be lacking it just somewhat, especially outside of New Zealand.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what I liked about the Force.
Like the Force are an attritional side. They're a very
grit and
it was in the rain and their spacing was perfect.
You only noticed it when it's missing. Is that like every time a Force hit came in, there was a bit of a cheer. And the whole side were slapping each other on the backs, and they were getting out of the line, and they just looked to be playing for each other. And like it's a missing dimension that does need to come back, especially to South African rugby. So let's see it this week.
I would hope so, and let's see a full house as well. I think
we will see. Like it's Ellis Park, obviously a huge stadium. But the Lions have had good crowds for much of the year, and it's in games that have been blowouts.
Well, do you know what? I just want to see a full house because I don't want to see the pickpocket thing. That's one thing we're going to cross. If anyone knows, if anyone's South African, please put in the comments. But what is with the thing of like if it's a half full, or like even half the tickets sold, that instead of all piling together to make a crowd, they all sit in like 2s and 3s.
Yeah, it's the most
all throughout the stadium. It's really weird to look at on the TV, and you're just like, what is this? This isn't like a sevens weekend.
Takes like 4 chairs to himself.
Yeah, it's like, well, this is my picnic chair, and this is like,
and then the top tier ends up more filled than the bottom tier. It just has a really weird aesthetic to it.
I don't like it, and that's why I want to see a full house. I want to see none of this spacing. I just want to see full house.
I tell you what, though, Ellis Park and Newlands, when they're full, are two of the best stadiums.
They're amazing in terms of atmosphere. Absolute cauldron.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll move on now to a New Zealand derby instead in Crusaders Highlanders, which is such a fixture. That's two great sides and two different sides, and there's going to be hopefully
it does the game of the weekend. Yeah. Well, maybe Stormers Chiefs, but probably this game.
Maybe. Well, like they're both interesting, and the fact that it's Stormers Chiefs, like the non-derby aspect to it is interesting as well.
Yeah, and the Stormers beat the Chiefs earlier.
And the Stormers beat the Chiefs earlier on, which like that's a fascinating game too. Plus the fact that we're pretty much. I reckon the Chiefs are the ones who are looking the best.
Hands and say that now because everyone's talking. I saw someone saying like the path to the Lions Crusaders final is fairly clear cut. Yeah, and I was like, what?
No, I don't know about that. I think the Chiefs have the most balance and also have that team ethos, and I think this is a test to go to South Africa. Like to beat the Stormers is a test, and they lost earlier in the season. But I think if they overcome it, they're in such a great shape going forward into the last two games. They're in because they've had that battle, and it's the same thing. Like if the Sharks don't show and the Lions end up putting a score on them, that's what you'll fear. They will be lacking.
It's going to be the Canes against them.
So no, I know, but I mean, I'm just saying in terms of like the test, the team will have had the tests at the right times, and if the Chiefs, this is a perfect test for them. This is a perfect quarterfinal.
Perfect time for a perfect test.
Exactly. Yeah. And if they overcome it, they're in a great spot.
Here's an interesting one. If the Highlanders beat the Crusaders and the Chiefs beat the Stormers, who's going to get the home semi? Is it going to be the Chiefs because they finished higher on the log, or did the Highlanders win it off the Satyrs, or how does that work?
I don't know. Know the answer. We'll see. But these are the ones that have to happen first. I don't know. Like, I kind of reckon it'll be certainly at home as well. The Crusaders definitely have the edge. The fact that they've been winning all season obviously lends to that as well. Their pack is very, very just irresistible. Sometimes they haven't been stopped.
Highlanders pack certainly doesn't have the meat of the Crusaders pack. No, that's for sure.
So they will need to have a huge game in themselves to achieve parity. That's got to be their goal, is to look for parity there. But mainly their paths to victory come in the back line.
Look at that pack. They've got Joe Moody back from the All Blacks, Cody Taylor back from the All Blacks, Owen Franks back from the All Blacks, Scott Barrett in the second row, who was playing last week with Sam Whitelock back from the All Blacks, Jordan Taufua, Matt Todd and Kieran Reid.
There's a balance and just some power to that, but to that pack, that's some unit. And like on the other side, I just feel that they're very good players. They're not to throw shade at the Highlanders pack. They are elite players as well. They're really good. It just feels like even player for player, position for position, they're going to struggle a little bit to match their opposite men, and it means that's going to be their challenge for the whole game. It'll be a big test at scrum time. It'll be like the 2 second rows will have to step up at line out time as well, because like Whitelock is a wily character at line out time, and obviously Scott Barrett is huge.
Yeah, it just looks like a massive task for that pack, that Highlanders pack, to just
get
parity.
Some ball and get some parity. And because once they have ball, I do think they are the slightly more potent, like slightly more like prone to finding the killer pass at the right time.
That's certainly what Aaron Smith loves to do, is find that killer
exactly
pass.
And he can link up well with like Naholo on the wing. Especially we've seen that.
Naholo,
so there are inroads, like the fact getting 40% possession would be a really good achievement for this pack, and I think it could be enough for them to score enough tries and nick the game.
Well, that's what happens. Like, if the Crusaders can't find the tries, like they couldn't find the tries last week after the first 12 minutes, then it's going to be interesting, because like we said earlier on, they can score from anywhere. Look at that team, like Malachi Fekitoa, probably not the best link man at 13. Got a lot of vision.
But you have Ben Smith outside.
Got a lot of vision for broken space, though. Malachi Fekitoa does. He can score individual tries. Ben Smith again, Richard Buckman, really solid player. Naholo, superb player. And Aaron Smith and Lima Sopawonga are really good at managing a backline. So I think in general that backline is really top drawer. I think they're going to have a great chance to score some tries if they can get some ball in broken field, if it gets kicked to them by Moanga. I think certainly they'll win that aerial battle if that's the way the Crusaders want to go. So it'll be interesting. It'll certainly be interesting. The Highlanders have always had this pluckiness to them. We're looking on paper here, and that Crusaders pack is so much better on paper.
Well, certainly the All Blacks seem to think so as well.
The Highlanders team that won Super Rugby did so without any All Blacks in their pack. They've always had this plucky big game aspect to them, and they've always had great game management. So they've always known when to kick the ball, when the space is there, when it's not. And a lot of that comes from Aaron Smith and Lima Sopawonga. And Ben Smith for sure.
So those are three great heads. There's a brains trust right there.
Yeah, exactly. But they know when to kick it. They know how to kick it. They know when, say, Tamanivalu is shooting up, they'll know how to kick that ball in behind him.
They also do back their skill set. They're very New Zealand in that regard. They do just back their ability in the moment. They identify the space, identify the chance, and go for it.
Yeah, but not in a stupid way. Not in a way that's just like without logic. They'll go when they know it's time to go, and they'll kick when they know it's time to kick. So that's always been their pathway to victory. They can find tries, they can be smart, and they can freeze teams out of the game. That said, I think what's likely to happen
is they'll find very little inroads at scrum time, find very little inroads at line-out time, find themselves being stopped at the gain line, and maybe not having a lot of ball for large periods of the time, and finding it very, very hard to resist that engine.
Perhaps against a sharper Crusaders team after last week.
Yeah, so. Crusaders got that's it. There's like losing. It's a cliche enough, but there's a lot more learned from a loss, and like going exactly. Yeah, Crusaders have gone the whole season unbeaten, apart from the Lions. Which was obviously disappointing for them as well. There was a lesson in that as well, which obviously is maybe not quite as relevant to Super Rugby, being just that they play very like a Northern Hemisphere side. Like, it was just in terms of a look that you could give a Northern Hemisphere side to catch them off guard. That wasn't it. It was the Blues doing crazy stuff that was not anticipated or factored in. That was an interesting kind of just a thing to learn for them. They were very much after coming in of a season of utter supremacy and physical dominance to be physically dominant or dominated and be left completely devoid of ideas and limited to 3 points was a really humbling thing for them. And now they've had this.
But certainly that's not the way the Highlanders are going to beat them.
No, it will not be. Yeah. Not a chance. They will be the physically dominant side here, and they will be just trying to keep the ball, apply the pressure, win the collisions, and then go wide at the right times. Trust Daragh to finish the opportunities out wide to pick the right men.
Valley, one of the top try scorers of the season, of course. As well.
Yeah.
So they've got some firepower, not as much as the Highlanders. But
it's very efficient. It's actually another one we'll draw more comparisons to Springbok land, but they an old school Springbok performance from the Crusaders would work here. Be bullying, be in their face. Fine, but still be capable. Have your weapons out wide and take the chances.
I want the Highlanders to win this one.
I would like that. I don't know. I like the Crusaders as well, but I would like for this this brand. I love their pack, and their pack are doing amazing things. But I would love for New Zealand, as in the All Blacks, to stop leaning so heavily on the Crusaders in terms of just the ethos of what they're trying to do. Certainly, that was something we think we've seen throughout the Lions tour, was just a bit of a shift from the more dynamic play, attack the space, be quick, find the killer pass. No, there was less of that, and it was more very deliberate, very kind of plodding along, plunging. Dog fights was what we saw in those test matches, was attritional dog fights between the two.
The Lions won pretty much every dog fight they were faced with, including against the Super Rugby teams, and it was the Super Rugby teams like the Highlanders who wanted to attack them. That really, they were the teams that gained supremacy. And the other thing that, like, the Highlanders get up a score if they get some early tries, which we know they can do with that firepower. They've got one hell of a Marty Banks to bring off the bench.
Marty Banks. He is some player. This is like Marty Banks is a player in the mold of Ben Smith. He's just not quite as supremely.
He hasn't got any of those attributes really. But he's just a smart brain.
He's a really smart brain and a really good boot. And he's sometimes at a physical discrepancy sometimes. But he has glorious hair. So it all balances out. No, he's a great player, and he's another one of those ones that you take for granted purely because, like, you didn't get an all-black cap, but then you see him put in some classy performances, and you just realise, they're an entire nation of rugby playing people. They all play rugby really, really well.
He's a cool little different player, Martin Banks. And
he does actually, like, coming off the bench, he's a good option because of that. He just he changes what the playmaker is doing, and it just changes the rhythm of the team.
Cold as Lima Supawonga. He's a really
because Lima Supawonga is one, like, he's a very good traditional, like, he's a good fly half. He really is. But he can be disrupted. He is susceptible to being rocked, to being frozen out of the game, to being.
The Crusaders the exact kind of team that can
do that exactly. So you need to be you'll need to be willing as a coach to identify that early, and like there's nothing wrong with bringing Marty Banks on at halftime. In fact, we'd welcome it. That'll give us a half of Marty Banks. But it will change and disrupt whatever rhythm there's. Like, you're fearful that the Crusaders are establishing a bit of dominance. You can disrupt that by bringing Marty Banks in.
Actually, the best way they're going to do that, I know I criticised them earlier for having to kick the ball a lot, and they don't want to be kicking away their ball. But that kicking game of the Highlanders can pin a team back.
You can,
and certainly the Crusaders, if how they get out of their own half, what their exit is going to matter here.
Yeah, because if they're just kicking too long, Smith, exactly.
That's
chaos ball, and you kick the ball too deep down Ben Smith's throat and watch what happens.
It's not just Ben Smith; it's a Ben Smith with a Naholo weapon on his side. So that's if how they exit is going to matter here.
Yeah, so
and
maybe
whether the Highlanders can pin them back, that's going to be crucial. So that's
also the tempo of the game will be very crucial as well. Whatever team manages to establish they want it fast. They want very, very rapid fire, whereas the Crusaders want deliberate, not slow, but deliberate.
Yes.
So that'll be interesting to see in the first quarter, when the game's maturing into its thing, which team establishes that and what pace the game ultimately is played at, because I think that will be the telling factor in terms of who gets the victory. Because if it does become that slower, more deliberate pace, saving like one errant kick and the chaos ball to get the Highlanders back in, I just don't see them having the tools to live with the Crusaders for 80 minutes in that.
But the way they do it is certainly start with that territory game.
They need to be pinning them back, making them exit, and making them have to vary exits by just having to do so many of them, and then one or two errant kicks, and then you have possession, and then you have your top and try time
to get into this game.
So it's a fascinating matchup. Just stylistically is the main thing that we're looking at throughout these quarterfinals, and it's great because they're all so different teams. We can't stress it enough, and they're all quality, but they just pose different questions to each other, and it's going to be interesting to see which side comes up with the right answers and which team ultimately has the best balance of all. And it's been a disjointed season, or just it's unfortunate that in terms of watching these sides develop, and I'm sure it's frustrating for the sides themselves. Like I'm sure the Lions would only have loved to have the Crusaders down in like welcome them down mid-season and test themselves mid-season and just get a baseline of where are we at, as opposed to running in a load of
when you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, you can only play what's in front of you, so it's great that you are scoring the tries, but you need to have those.
I definitely do like that about the Lions as well, that they don't stop scoring. Yeah, when they're presented with a weakness in a defense.
Yeah, they just keep going at it. Yeah, they don't switch off, which is like we've watched many teams. We're sometimes critical of our own teams for doing just that. So it's a really good trait in a side that if you're breaking a team, you're going to just keep scoring tries. You're not going to let them back in. You're not going to concede it, unless it's an intercept because you're trying something. They're like. We're finally getting to a point now where stylistically they have these tests, and they'll have to, like, their coaching staff, some are in better places than others in terms of having had, like, obviously the Crusaders have had this lesson now. They have work-ons. They can rally their team around, like we said, ideas, specific points on where they went wrong, whereas other teams like the Lions are maybe even going, if the Sharks don't turn up, they're maybe going into the semi-final without that, like, evidence-based confidence. Like, sure, you can be confident you've been winning a load of games by a load of scores, but there's always going to be that lingering doubt when they go into that contest, because it's just like, we haven't faced this yet.
Just that doubt on, like, if it's a tie game on 60 minutes.
Yeah, that's where it'll be telling. That, like, it's not a factor because, like, obviously they're coming in, they're going to have to play the game. The better team will win on the day. So all of this preamble and stuff is all just talk. But where it will happen, and we've seen it with the Wallaby side, or not the Wallabies, but any Australian side this season, it's just been they're lacking for that confidence, and that means that when it's in the 60th minute, when it's in the 70th minute, and it's a close contest, they're the ones who fold. Yeah. They're the ones who break, because they're not, like we said, like we complimented the Highlanders for doing. They're not backing their skill set. They're not going for it because they trust their outside man, their inside man. They trust their own hands, their ability to fire a flat pass on the run at top speed across to the winger. They just trust their ability to do that.
And you're gonna see that trust perhaps dissipate in the Lions somewhat if Plan A fails.
Exactly. So
we haven't seen Plan A fail. So that's almost what the only job for the Sharks this week in terms of
disrupt Plan A.
Yeah, make this competition interesting. Your job is just disrupt Plan A and let's see what can happen. Because the Lions are going to need that going forward, because they are going to have adversity before winning this competition.
Exactly.
I think we can say that for sure. So when they do, like, they're gonna have all that confidence they have in their ability to hammer teams. Like, they need to have confidence in their ability to react to puzzles and problems and be able to figure them out and be able to think, what do we do here? What do we do? How do we do this if they're doing this? Yeah. And all of that is missing at the moment. Yeah. So that's certainly a problem.
And it's also there's also a question mark as to, like, where is the leadership in that? Like, who's fulfilling the leadership roles?
Warren Whiteley's a good leader.
I think he is, but it's just been such smooth sailing that that leadership, that core leadership in the team hasn't been tested either, and it hasn't been kind of galvanized by adversity. You know, so that's what's good. They're going to get a baptism of fire at some point in these knockout stages, and we look forward to watching it. Hopefully, they can rise. So. We'll touch now at Stormers Chiefs. We've kind of mentioned briefly, but that's another super interesting game. And like,
when we look at how the Stormers beat the Chiefs earlier in this season, it was a high scoring enough game, and they scored that wonderful try with that superb offload. Do you remember that try?
Oh yeah, they out the back from the deck, and it was like freakishly class.
Yes, yeah. I'm trying to remember who threw it, but anyway, was it the Stormers? It was a superb game, but they had an abrasive defense. It was one of the first times I remember noting it at the time. They were shooting, and it was good to see them shooting. It was not a blitz, but it was a shooter defense. Yeah, and there were some good reads, and there was some good disruptive play happening. And the Chiefs again did figure it out and did some interesting things and found some tries, but it wasn't enough because the Stormers were finding tries too, which was really interesting.
That's
really
key.
Good.
It'll be key again,
but
this weekend.
They had that energy to them, and that's that energy that home fixtures can really bring out of teams, and that we were saying was missing in South African rugby. And so you're going to have a Newlands. I don't think it'll be full. I hope it's full, but I think it's going to have a good crowd in Newlands, and they're going to be loud because it's in on the pitch, Newlands, and it's a good stadium. And I think they're going to be loud. They're going to be responding to tackles, and if they can make this a dogfight, they certainly have a chance. You look at how that team matches up, how this game matches up. you got some really, really fun battles.
Yeah.
So you got Peter Steptoe and Etzebeth against Brodie Retallick and Dominic Bird in the second row.
Fascinating. That's as good a second row tussle as you'll see at any level of this game across the world. Like they're all elite and they're so big. They're giants.
There's going to be wonderful work at the mall from all those guys. There's going to be some great stuff in the line out. It's going to be really interesting to see how exactly that takes shape.
Yeah.
You got Sia Khaleesi, who's in all kinds of form after the French series.
He's been immense for the last few months. He really has. He's an absolute freak. Khaleesi.
Yes.
I still want to see him. Ian Glenn guest commentate.
Khaleesi. Yes, yeah.
But yeah, no, he's been like a wonderful all-round back rower, and he really was carrying. He was one of the leaders in that spring back side. We saw this against France.
And he can carry. He can certainly jackal.
Yeah, he's a very, very tough to move. He's like a rock over that ball. He's going nowhere.
They've also got some weapons. They got Cheslin Colby. He's a good weapon to have.
He is. He's a touch of the old wild card factor to him as well. He could if the pressure comes up as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see him either bag the winning try or concede the winning try. You know, there's a touch of that about him as well. He is a human highlight reel though. At the same time,
he is a human highlight reel. That is the embodiment of what Cheslin Colby is. They've also got Delindy in the centre.
Yeah, he's a very fine player.
Yeah, so they got a lot of weapons. Chiefs again though, serious team.
If you're talking weapons, I think the Chiefs do have them slightly outmatched. Because
certainly not to the point where it becomes nothing. It's Espio Moraes, the guy I was thinking of as the fullback, and he's a really classy operator. And he is the guy through that wonder pass. Really, really solid team all around. The Stormers. Maybe suspect to the on and off factor as well.
Yeah,
they have
definitely.
been again,
you would assume they will be on come quarterfinal weekend.
We almost don't know how to critique them because their biggest, the games that they've struggled the most have been against the Lions, and we don't know how good the Lions are.
Yeah, I know.
But obviously, the evidence suggests that the Lions are pretty good. But certainly we know they have what it takes to put it up to the Chiefs. The question is, I'm looking at this Chiefs team now. They do have Liam Messon back.
Nice.
They don't have Dominic Bird. That's interesting.
No, they're going.
Dominic Bird must have been injured.
Mitchell Brown is in.
There.
Big game for Mitchell Brown.
Yeah. Dominic Bird is on the bench. Madness. Well, he'll come on and do some damage.
Yeah.
Stephen Donald at 12. Holy shit.
Is that what they're going for?
Stephen Donald at 12 instead of Charlie Ngatai. So you're going to look at a Chiefs team that is really going to be able to
move the ball instantly everywhere.
So you talk about their weapons. Again, Anton Linder-Brown being used as a weapon instead of a distributor. I think
Stephen Donald is one thing he's been not shying away from this season as a 12 is a barnstorming carry.
Yeah.
I would caution that again, just looking up again at who's
still in the boys.
Because I don't think that's where his assets are at the most, and I would fear if he does that early doors and gets rocked in a contact, he will not be effective. He will cease to be effective. Because he sometimes his instincts in a game he does.
Nana Williams to bring on as well.
Yeah, well now that's some impact. That's actually now that I think on that, that's probably a decent selection just in terms of having that. Like Stephen Donald should be a calming presence. He's a good leader to have amongst them.
I just think for Cruden, again, it takes all the weight off his shoulders and allows him to really express himself. And the same is true with McKenzie.
Yeah.
Because if you have those two guys working as distributors, you're going to have McKenzie is very capable of working that fullback role and coming in out wide. The only thing you got to caution against is not letting McKenzie into the game.
Yeah.
Because you can't just be using him as a traditional fullback and using him sparingly.
Yeah.
When the guy's in that kind of form that we've seen him in recent weeks, you want to touch
the
ball as often as possible.
The game just gone, he was so impressive. Any time he touched the ball, he got his hands on the ball a lot and he made something happen every time.
That's what you want to see with McKenzie though, is that freedom to move.
Yeah. And get him in space with ball in hand and get him working in tandem with James Lowe, who's having an absolute class season. Oh my god, he's been so impressive. This whole Chiefs team have been so impressive, and it's interesting. It's such a test. Obviously, New Zealanders are acutely aware of how tough it is to go to South Africa and win. It's one of the few challenges that they do have unmitigated respect for. They know that going to anywhere in South Africa is going to be tough, so they will be up for it. But they just have so many tools. There's a lovely balance to this team, and I love watching them play. They play rugby at a lovely pace. It's another one where the tempo will be kind of key. If the Stormers obviously have given us a lot of different looks this season. If they end up playing this crazy basketball loosey goosey type thing, I don't think...
I don't think they'll be as clinical.
I don't think they will. I don't think they match up well. I think they'll find themselves outmatched in that game.
They got to find a way to shut down the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's what it has to be about, and that will involve slowing the game down a bit. And it'll probably mean a bit more kicking.
That shooter defense. Yeah. That's the main thing. Can they disrupt? But again, the Chiefs with those weapons, like again, that's possibly what the selection has something to do with the selection of Stephen Donald. Obviously, not just the Nyata injury, but the fact that like they can move that ball wide quick. So if they're faced with a shooter, they can get it outside him. Yeah, and then you got McKenzie in space, and then you got try time, baby. Yeah, because that's what happens
when save for a speculative forward pass decision or something to save you. It's another game that matches up really well, and it's one I will be watching for tempo as well. That whatever tempo it's played at in the first quarter, I think will dictate who comes out on top, and I think if the Chiefs are allowed to establish their game and get into it, I think they're superior. In terms of player for player and just weapon for weapon. I think they're the most.
Chiefs this season is their problem solving ability. Yeah. I noted it a few
because they have thinkers on the pitch. When they have that axis of Cruden and Stephen Donald and McKenzie and even James Lowe from the wing is a thinker as well. They're all good leaders of the game. Leonard Brown too.
I like the idea of having Leonard Brown be free to do his thing as well. To not be like what he was asked to do in that third test for the All Blacks.
It was a job that was a role that's slightly alien to him. Exactly. It's like he's not what he's there.
Earlier, it's a little bit mad that he was forced to really play out of his comfort zone in an All Black team where he can be in his comfort zone in his club team. It's a bit nuts. If you're like, it's a bit counter All Blacks almost. It's like putting a guy in an Ireland jersey. You often see Ireland do that to guys. Force them to constrict and play a certain role. Yeah. Whereas the All Blacks usually is like, everybody gets better when they're in an All Black jersey.
And you want people expressing themselves in the All Black jersey as well, which is something that I think was maybe a little bit lost in this tour. But like the Rugby Championship may see them renewed.
And I think we'll see it this week from the Chiefs. I think they're my pick to win. The whole competition, the Chiefs. I think
we're gonna say it now, and we'll have the egg on the face if the Stormers rally and do.
The thing that's true of this Stormers team is they got a lot of talent. They certainly got the personnel to do the job. They've probably got the game plan to do the job. We've seen them do it earlier this season, and we know they have the ability to certainly make this.
Who's going to win at scrum time?
Well, that's the thing. Like, we don't know. I think the Chiefs actually have a pretty solid scrum, but I don't know how much it'll matter. It's going to be good weather over there, but certainly they have the ability to make it a one-score game, and then who knows? Yeah.
That's where
absolutely this is a tight we've been criticizing the competition a lot this season. This is where it gets fun.
These games are close and they're tougher to call.
It's like a 10% chance,
because there's
a higher chance than anyone else.
Because of any given day these games can go any number of ways, and the same is true of the last one, which Brumbies Hurricanes.
This one I think has only gone one way.
I don't know. I could see the Brumbies at home.
There's a pathway to victory that involves disrupting their breakdown.
It also involves the Hurricanes having a stuttering performance, which I do think is in them more so than some of the other New Zealand teams. I think some of the way that they're leaning on to play the game, even in what Bowden's doing, like Bowden isn't a great all-round 10, but I think they're a little bit too quick to kick the ball sometimes speculatively. They're a little bit wasteful in that regard with the ball that they have, and they can't, if they're matched in the pack where they're getting disrupted and they're not getting as much ball, they can become very disjointed. So like I can see the Hurricanes being one of the New Zealand teams where I can just see slightly more scenarios in my head whereby they lose games. I can, even when they're not doing it, I can still see like little cracks there that I'm just like, I'm not entirely convinced by what they're doing. And I like it's partly born of like Ireland have spent a lot of time in the last decade pioneering the kicking game, be it Gary Owens, be it crossfield kicks. I feel like, and even their tendency to chip things over the rush defense as well. I think if teams are savvy, they can utilize that. They can bait them into kicking them their ball. They can just bait them into those kinds of traps because they're a little bit too keen to experiment with the boot rather than trusting their ball in hand. They can display lack of patience with ball in hand sometimes by just kicking sometimes speculatively. So I think that if that will have to happen. See, like the thing about this game where it's like obviously slightly less close is that the Brumbies are the inferior side, so they don't have the same controllables. A lot of this hinges on if the Hurricanes let the occasion get to them, don't play that well, that's where it'll come from. The Brumbies also have to play very attritionally and stop them at source. You're raising eyebrows at me. You don't think the Brumbies have it in them? Don't think they have anything to offer at this stage of the competition.
Bowden's going
to score 3 tries. That is possible too. Now that I can see that happening too.
I think they're going to put a cricket score on them. I think they're going to put 35 to 40 points on them. I don't think it's going to be close. I think Hurricane. A lot of the criticisms you level at them are accurate. And I think a lot of them are going to come into play
in the weeks to come. That's more what I'm thinking. I guess.
But I don't think the Brumbies. I think the Brumbies had a solid defense this week. I think they challenged the Chiefs. I think the Hurricanes have this bailout of just finding tries. I think they got Jordy Barrett, who's in the form of his life. Yeah, short life, but it's still some form. Lamape again is in good form. Got a good offload away last week. Again, I think he has his limitations. I think he's going to have enough to do some serious damage to the Brumbies defense. Yeah. And then you got Bowden coming back into the team. So much pace. When he just gets presented with the space that these Aussie teams are leaving each other, he's going to run. He's not just going to kick the ball. He's going to run through gaps.
Yeah. Well, that's what, like, if he does.
And you got Naheem Scudder from fullback for the first time this season, who's allowed to play that Damien McKenzie role of floating and engaging. So I think they're going to find tries. I think they're going to find quite a few tries. And I don't think the Brumbies are going to be able to make it into a dogfight. Maybe if it rains, they can. Maybe they'll narrow it to a shorter score, something like the 28-10 we saw last week from the Chiefs. Yeah. But I really do think that the Hurricanes are going to come in and just put a score on them.
To be honest, that is the more likely scenario. I'm just saying, if it was any other New Zealand team, I would have no doubt. I think there's slightly more room to doubt with this Hurricanes team, and it's part like I definitely think they most likely will get through this Brumbies challenge, and then it'll be moving on. And I definitely think those criticisms I had could come to the fore. I wouldn't be surprised to see this team, who have all season long been so good at finding the tries. I can see a fixture coming up where the tries just don't come.
Well, that's what happened against the Crusaders earlier in the year. The Crusaders blitz stopped them, and then they did that crossfield kick thing that they've been doing all season, and then the Crusaders just marked it, and it was really easy for them. But then they went and beat the Crusaders last week, so they still have an avenue to find tries always. I suppose what is true is that like their centres can be stifling, especially with Jordy at 13. I like Jordy a lot. I don't know if I love him at 13. Yeah. As defensively, again, there could be some issues there, and they do. And the Brumbies do have some good players. They have a Curran Durrani. They have a Henry Spade. They have some ability to score tries.
Not the same. I just don't think they're at the level. Yeah. It's probably true, and it's the evidence of this season is what you can humbly submit for that argument. It's just look at.
They won 6 from 15 games. I mean,
I guess it's a
little bit nuts.
It is crazy, but yeah. Like, if there is any justice, it will be somewhat of a shellacking and a humbling, and back to the drawing board, Mr. Cheka, and get them galvanised again. But that's going to be a preview. We're going to be watching the games anyway. We'll have a look back on them next week. They're all really good games, to be honest. They are. Even though for our criticism of the Brumbies are also a super Rugby level side, and they are capable players, one and all. So like there are interesting clashes throughout this weekend. And it's going to be some class rugby.
I think we'll skip the Pro 14.
We're going to skip the Pro 14. Yeah, well, there's plenty of time. It doesn't start for now. We still don't even know anything. Obviously, if you're watching this, like, the Pro 14 has been established as what's going to happen next season, but we don't.
What's up in the air is what the system is going to be. It sounds like they have, like, what I was first concerned with.
The two conference things.
Yeah, and it sounds like 2 conferences. What I was first concerned with was the idea that the Derby games would be lost.
Would be axed, yeah.
But by the sound of this new format that the BBC were explaining, they're going to not do that. They're going to have the Derby games still be in existence. So it sounds like it's going to be fine, interesting.
Yeah, as I said, like there's a bit of outrage as always with change. From what I can hear from the media response up here, I'm not feeling that same outrage. I'm a little bit vexed by it. But the fact that it's not controlled, my gut feeling is intrigue. It's like, how is this going to look? And the fact that we're Leinster fans, we love Leinster. Now they're going global. The Celtic League is now the Pro 14 with 2 South African teams and
2 Italian teams and possibly an American team.
Yeah, an American team to come if all goes well. So bring that on. We're happy to be spreading the rugby if no one else is. But what other news?
Due diligence and eat our vegetables and talk about some other things that happened. Peter Stringer joins Worcester. 1 year deal.
Yes. How old is he? 40 now?
Probably.
He's probably going to turn 40 in that.
He's not going to retire until Joe gives him his 100th cap. I think that's fair. I think he should stick with it until he dies. Until Joe needs to give.
He'll be playing at 50.
He'll be playing at 80. Yeah. He needs to keep at it until Joe gives him his 100th cap, which he deserves.
Joe should give him his 100th cap.
Yeah. In the game this autumn against whomever is not. Hang on,
is he on?
99.
He's on 99, but is he on 98 somewhere in some other... Did I hear like one test that like wasn't... Or is that...
No, he's on 99. I'm pretty sure he's on 99.
Sure there's one that was... there was a cap in dispute. I can't... Raging now, I can't cite that. But no, he's like 99 caps anyway. He definitely deserves it. He's a pioneering scrum half. He was the key to what Ireland were so good at in that era with those players in terms of scoring off first phase, creating tries off first phase, and really disrupting teams. His quick ball, his passing off both hands, like just for any scrum half grown like who's starting to play now, there's a lot to be said for the tape of Peter Stringer and what he does, because much as yes, you need your scrum half to be a playmaker, managing the game, you need to have him have a good kicking game and all this. Like Stringer wasn't the complete scrum half by no means,
far from it,
but his ability to pass from the deck is something that's being lost by a lot of these, like a lot of guys who like Will Genia mold a scrum half, who likes to pick it up, challenge the line before passing. A lot of these players. I
don't know how often you see these years just out halves picking the ball up from the deck.
Yeah, out halves getting balls above their head, getting balls behind their ear, and it's just like that never ever happened with him. He was so precise with his passing from the deck. He did one that's why he can still play. He just does one job, does it very very well,
and it's not like it's been effective. Isolated from the game. You just need someone else to do the other jobs.
Yeah, you need a classy out half outside you.
You need someone else to do the kicking game. Someone else to be a threat around the fringes, and someone else to find killer passes. But in terms of getting the ball from A to B, nobody better.
Exactly.
So,
yeah,
congrats to Peter.
Yeah, so he'll be captained by Donnacha.
Yes,
in that Worcester outfit. That's an interesting Munster
reunion.
I don't know. What is it? The Munster exiles. When we start getting Munster, they're more Irish than London Irish.
We'll probably save our big Damien McKenzie chat for when the news about Leicester Tiger becomes official.
We heard this rumor. Is it a rumor or is it a story?
I don't know yet. I heard it. I saw it on Facebook, but it was from a Facebook page that I trust. But then I tried to find it. I looked down through a few news things and couldn't find it, so I was like, I'm not ready to confirm it
or deny.
Yeah, but apparently he might be moving to Leicester Tigers, which for many reasons that we'll get into in a future date would be a disaster for World Rugby. Anyway, the other thing that happened is Fiji completed a near perfect season, 38-16 over Samoa in Apia. Samoa at a crossroads in terms of their rugby, puts that Wales result into context where they nearly lost to them. Fiji look really good though.
They do.
So
Fiji have a similar to their Sevens side in that they seem to have a new mold of professionalism to match their crazy creativity on the rugby pitch.
Yeah, just a strong blitz defense. Yeah. Again, like South Africa, that's all I'm asking.
just give me a strong press. You know, just come up and hit.
Yeah.
Because again, like Fiji are another one who like don't lack for attributes. They're quite an interesting side in that their props don't look that dissimilar from their wingers. Who don't look that dissimilar to their flankers, to their out half.
The other interesting thing is like it springs up players like Leone Nakarawa, who is just a freak of nature.
Oh, he's a crazy. Oh my god, he's such a pleasure to watch. It's just chaos, and I can imagine he's a nightmare to plan for defending. And I've seen him in the RDS do damage in a Glasgow shirt.
I remember that final between Glasgow and Munster that he just tore Munster to shreds.